is Ingo Swann, who is another remote viewer, and he is told to remote view the moon. And he remote views an alien base.
Imagine someone who claimed to see things at a distance without using sight or instruments. That person is Ingo Swann. He said he took part in secret work for US agencies. He wrote about it in a 1998 book called Penetration. In that book, he said he was asked to look at the far side of the moon to check for alien activity. Years later, some documents related to remote viewing were declassified by the CIA. Those documents named Swann as a participant. He also said aliens are already here, and that they act in ways that might not be friendly. That claim raises questions. What parts of his story match known facts? What parts might be imagination or misinterpretation? This version tells the same events and ideas, but arranges them with a different tone and flow. It avoids dramatic language and sticks to clear descriptions. It follows the main points: Swann's early tests, his work at SRI, experiments on Jupiter and the moon, the supermarket episode, trips guided by mysterious handlers, and the broader questions about remote viewing and evidence. Swann was born in 1933 and died in 2013. People close to him noticed he spoke of unusual perceptions at a young age. He took part in ESP tests in his 20s. Early on, he joined studies where volunteers tried to use mind abilities in controlled settings. In one early test, he tried to describe symbols inside sealed boxes. When he said a box was dark because its bulb was burnt out, the experimenters found the bulb was indeed out. That incident is often cited in accounts of his life. Such successes gave him a reputation among researchers interested in parapsychology. Later, he met physicists at Stanford Research Institute, SRI, who were testing remote viewing, a term he helped coin in 1971. Remote viewing means describing remote places without sensory input via normal channels. At SRI, Swann joined experiments led by Harold Puthoff and Russell Targ. Those experiments sought to see if a person could name features of distant targets chosen without their knowledge. Some published papers describe tasks where a subject tried to describe locations based on given coordinates. In 1972, SRI researchers took Swann to equipment testing whether he could influence physical devices. They reported fluctuations in a magnetometer when he tried to affect it mentally, though later reviews questioned if those fluctuations were outside normal variation. Still, Swann pressed on with remote viewing. He agreed to projects where he attempted to view places on Earth and then other planets. One SRI experiment asked Swann to view Jupiter. He agreed after SRI researchers said NASA had missions there, so observations could be checked later. He described storms, cloud patterns, and atmospheric details. Some points, such as storms on Jupiter, were already known from telescopes. He mentioned a hydrogen envelope and swirling weather, which matched data from Pioneer probes. He reported seeing ice crystals and cloud colours that aligned with infrared readings from probes. In addition, he said he saw a faint ring around Jupiter. At the time, no ring was confirmed by Pioneer, ground telescopes, or earlier data. But in 1979, Voyager 1 returned images showing a thin ring system around Jupiter. That match is noted as striking by those who support remote viewing accounts. SRI's work caught the interest of government agencies. In the 1970s, the CIA and US Army looked into psychic methods for intelligence. They funded studies under various codenames. Over time, programs like SK-IN-AT and later the Stargate project ran from the early 1970s to 1995. The aim was to see if remote viewing could yield reliable data on enemy sites or other targets. Some internal reports found remote viewing results vague or inconsistent and concluded it had no clear value for operations. Yet Swann's role remained of interest. He joined sessions where he tried to describe secret sites, coordinate targets, or even probe into space regions. Documents later declassified mention him by name. Swann tells a story about being approached one night and taken to a secret location. He said military-looking escorts led him through a museum, then blindfolded him, flew him by helicopter to a facility near Washington, D.C., and introduced him to a handler named Mr. Axelrod. Swann described being offered a daily cash payment for his work and being told to keep quiet for years. He said he stayed in a guarded room with amenities like a TV or gym during the assignment. This episode appears only in his memoir. Official records confirm remote viewing sessions, but do not detail dramatic abductions or blindfolded flights. The absence of corroborating agency logs makes that narrative hard to verify. It may match Swann's personal recall or represent a stylized retelling of meeting handlers under secrecy. Swann said his first task under Axelrod was remote viewing the moon. He described using coordinates to explore lunar landscapes. He reported seeing cliffs, craters, sandy areas, then tracks that looked like machinery paths. He also said he sensed an atmosphere in some regions, noting scattered light and green haze in parts of a crater. He described structures like hangars, roads bridging craters, and round holes as if dug by large machines. In domes with coloured lights, he saw humanoid figures. He felt watched by those beings, then was called back by handlers. No publicly available lunar data confirms these features. Official lunar exploration shows no evidence of artificial structures or atmosphere on the moon. Photographs from Apollo missions and later probes show a barren surface without buildings or air. If such installations existed, missions would likely have detected them. Swann's account conflicts with known lunar science. Swann also told of meeting a woman in a supermarket after the moon mission. He said he felt drawn to her, then sensed she was not human. He reported seeing the same agents, twins, nearby, implying surveillance. Axelrod later called him to warn about her. Swann suggested she might be a spy or android tailing him. In a Cold War context, CIA and Soviet agencies ran covert operations and watched each other. Some programs even explored psychic spying on Soviets. But there is no evidence linking Swann to a specific spy scenario. That supermarket episode lacks outside witness reports or records. It remains anecdotal from Swann's perspective. Later, Swann said he reached 65% accuracy in remote viewing tests. He noted a handler told him to record that figure and wait. When he did, the note was removed and replaced by a message telling him to expect contact. After some months, Axelrod reappeared and invited him on another mission. That mission led him by private jet north through dark forests to observe an object emerging from a lake. He described a triangle craft, coloured fog, beams of light, and a pull of lake water into the craft. Swann later guessed it was an unmanned drone mining water for the moon. Axelrod neither confirmed nor denied Swann's idea, then sent him back. No independent report or physical evidence exists for such an event. Scientific and military records do not note a craft rising from a lake with such effects. If pine trees died, or animals died from beams, local authorities would record unusual incidents. No known reports match that. The story remains in Swann's memoir as personal testimony. Swann's Jupiter observations via remote viewing are easier to check. Published planetary data match some of his descriptions. He noted storms, hydrogen in the atmosphere, ice crystals, and cloud colours. Those were already known or inferred from telescopes and early probes. The ring observation stands out because the ring was not confirmed until Voyager 1 in 1979. Supporters say that points to genuine remote viewing. Skeptics note that researchers might infer a faint ring could exist, given rings around other planets, or they might unconsciously guess based on theory. Jupiter's rings had been speculated before Voyager findings. The fact that Swann mentioned a ring before official confirmation is notable, but not proof. It could arise from logical inference. If Saturn and Uranus have rings, Jupiter might too. Yet, the precise prediction of a faint ring near Jupiter adds a curious detail. Swann's involvement with remote viewing is documented. He is credited with coining remote viewing and took part in experiments at SRI and later in classified US programs. Records confirm such experiments occurred under code names in the 1970s and 1980s. Declassified CIA and DIA documents show remote viewing sessions, though results were mixed and often vague. Such programs ended when reviews found no reliable intelligence value. That context aligns with Swann's claim of being paid and told to stay silent. Agencies rarely keep official logs accessible on clandestine tasks, so inner details remain unclear. Swann himself admitted he made mistakes in remote viewing. He said he avoided tasks that were not verifiable. He noted that self-proclaimed psychics sometimes erred badly. He argued he was not a fraud and his experiments had successes and failures. People who worked with him publicly vouched that he believed his accounts and took care to avoid obvious errors. Critics argue that anecdotal success can arise from chance, inference, and later retrofitting of descriptions to match outcomes. Human memory can distort events. Without strict controls and blind checks, it is hard to separate true extrasensory perception from guesswork or inference. Regarding the moon missions, no known evidence supports artificial structures or an atmosphere on the moon. Apollo missions returned rocks, took photographs, and measured surface conditions showing no air and no installations. Lunar orbiters have mapped the surface in detail. No credible images or sensor data show constructions or fog. Claims of hidden files or suppressed images often rely on conspiracy thinking. NASA and other agencies release high-resolution maps and photos of lunar far side. If unusual structures existed, they would challenge basic physics of a dead world. It is far more probable Swann's remote impressions reflected interpretation of patterns in his mind rather than real structures on the moon. The supermarket episode may reflect stress or suggestion. If Swann felt observed, that could result from anxiety about secrecy. In the Cold War, paranoia about surveillance was common. Both US and Soviet sides ran spy networks. Some tried recruiting human sources, some looked into psychic methods. But the specific scenario of an alien disguised as a woman seems unsupported. It fits a narrative of paranoia mixed with imagination. Occam's principle suggests simpler explanations. An ordinary person noticed in passing, perhaps part of surveillance. But no evidence shows a non-human being or android in disguise. Swann's Lake UFO story follows a familiar pattern. Remote wilderness, strange craft emerging, strange lights and effects, rapid departure with no proof left behind. Many UFO accounts share themes: sudden sighting, missing data afterward, no physical evidence, lone witness memory. In scientific investigation, extraordinary claims require solid evidence. Lack of independent verification, absence of instrument readings, or physical traces means the claim remains unverified. Swann's later guess about mining water for lunar bases is speculative. Water on the moon is present as ice and shadows at poles, not pumped from Earth lakes via UFOs. That theory does not align with current lunar science. Swann's book, Penetration, blends his experiences with personal views on extraterrestrials. It is a memoir mixed with speculation. Readers must decide how much to trust it. He had a track record in remote viewing experiments where some descriptions matched data. He also had tales that conflict with known facts. That mix is common in personal memoirs about paranormal work. Accounts can include genuine events, misinterpretations, wishful thinking, or deliberate embellishments for narrative effect. The backdrop of secret programs adds intrigue. It is true the CIA ran programs on psychic phenomena during the Cold War. Declassified files show funding and experiments. They hope to counter rumoured Soviet research. They hired people like Swann, Joseph McMoneagle, and others to remote view targets. Some sessions tried to locate hostages, submarines, or missile sites. Reviews later judged results unreliable for actionable intelligence. Swann's participation in remote viewing is part of that documented history. But dramatic claims about alien bases on the moon or UFO retrieval missions are not supported by official findings. Jupiter's ring prediction stands out because it aligns with later data. Still, remote viewing proponents debate whether correct guesses come from ESP or educated guesses. Jupiter's ring was faint. Astronomers expected rings could exist given other gas giants. The precise timing of Swann's statement relative to data availability raises questions. Some records show hints of ring-like features from Pioneer data, though not conclusive images. That may have influenced SRI researchers or Swann unconsciously. Alternatively, it remains an intriguing case where remote viewing seemed to precede direct observation. Swann said he hesitated before remote viewing unverifiable targets. That caution suggests he valued credibility, but later he described far-fetched scenes. Perhaps he felt pressure to produce striking accounts, or his imagination filled gaps when details were lacking. Memory of remote sessions years later may blend observations with later knowledge. Confirmation bias can shape recollection. If one recalls later that Voyager confirmed rings, one might remember claiming the ring. Without strictly time-stamped recorded transcripts, it is hard to validate order of claims versus known data. Swann's claim that those involved in his experiments believed him is plausible. People working in parapsychology often share beliefs in psychic phenomena. That does not prove the phenomena exist. It shows group dynamics and expectations matter. Skeptical researchers found flaws in remote viewing studies. Lack of controls, sensory leakage, poor protocols, and post hoc matching of descriptions to targets. In controlled tests, consistent, replicable results were not achieved. Remote viewing remains classified as pseudoscience by mainstream science. Swann wrote about aliens among us. He believed extraterrestrials visited Earth and operated secretly. He described them as not necessarily friendly. That theme appears in many UFO and alien contact narratives. No confirmed evidence supports extraterrestrial presence on Earth or the Moon. Scientific consensus holds no proof of alien visits. Reports of unidentified aerial phenomena persist, but evidence is anecdotal. Official studies yield no conclusive proof of non-human craft. Claims of alien agendas rely on witness testimony, which can be unreliable. Swann's work influenced popular culture about psychic spies and UFOs. His stories feed interest in mysteries. They inspire books, videos, and discussions online. Some treat his accounts as literal truth. Others view them as folklore or mind phenomena. The balance between open-minded inquiry and skepticism matters. People can find value in exploring experiences while recognizing limits of evidence. Swann's life shows someone dedicated to exploring mind abilities and open to unusual ideas. His experiences reflect an era of experimentation and hope for new intelligence methods. That era also shows the risk of chasing unproven methods under secrecy. When reading Swann's stories, note the difference between documented experiments and personal anecdotes. SRI records and declassified CIA files confirm remote viewing tests occurred. They provide numerical results, experiment descriptions, and evaluations. They do not confirm alien bases or UFO lake missions. Use documented reports for what is verifiable and treat personal stories as unverified. That helps separate well-documented historical. Swann said he feared tarnishing his reputation by guessing unverifiable targets. That suggests he knew the need for credible marks. Yet he later described dramatic scenes that conflict with known science. That tension shows the challenge in studying claimed psychic phenomena. When experiments yield ambiguous results, participants may seek dramatic tasks. But without clear verification, dramatic claims remain uncertain. That pattern appears in Swann's accounts. Initial successes in Earth or Jupiter tasks, then leaps into unverified territory like moon bases or UFO lake scenes. The context of Cold War secrecy influenced such experiments. Agencies feared Soviet advances in any field, including parapsychology. That led to funding for remote viewing research. Once reviews found limited practical value, funding ended. Many records were later declassified, showing test protocols and results. Those documents rarely mention alien bases. They focus on human-scale targets like buildings, locations, or events. That absence of any reference to lunar structures in official records weighs against Swann's account of moon bases. Swann's narrative style in Penetration mixes factual accounts, speculative interpretation, and storytelling elements. He writes in first person, describing sensations and impressions as if literal perception. That style aims to engage readers. Yet, readers must check facts independently. For example, record of Jupiter's rings can be checked in NASA archives. Lunar science can be checked in mission data. Supermarket and lake episodes cannot be checked in open records. Thus, treat them as personal anecdote rather than confirmed event. Some defenders of remote viewing argue that even if some claims are wrong, that does not disprove the phenomenon. They point to correct items like ring on Jupiter. They suggest wrong items are due to noise or misinterpretation of impressions. Critics reply that correct items can arise from inference or chance, and errors show lack of reliable mechanism. Both sides agree the phenomenon is not established by rigorous science. The debate continues in fringe circles. Swann's claim of payment and secrecy matches general practice for covert work. He said he was paid cash daily and had to stay silent for years. Intelligence agencies often require secrecy for sensitive programs. But dramatic details like blindfolded helicopter flights and hidden bases may be narrative flourishes. It is plausible he met handlers under NDA, but specifics are unverifiable. Keep that in mind when weighing his story. So, Ingo Swann's story includes some parts grounded in documented experiments and declassified projects, and other parts that conflict with known science or lack evidence. His Jupiter predictions offer an intriguing data point. His lunar base and UFO lake accounts remain unverified. His supermarket encounter reads like spy fiction. His overall narrative fits a personal memoir of a psychic investigator, mixing potential genuine observations with speculation. Use published records to confirm known experiments and planetary facts. Treat dramatic anecdotes as unverified personal claims.